Cormac and I are making great progress towards getting the interior of the boat painted. It's a very long process, but it's looking really good. I'm optimistic that we'll be able to get to painting next week. And then we also this week took a short trip to the boat show, the Seattle Boat Show, and met up with some friends, made some new ones. So enjoy the episode. My name is Matt. Follow along as I turn Duracell, the legendary ocean racing sailboat, into a comfortable cruising home. So it's day 7 of my painting project on the interior of the boat. Mostly what I've been doing is sanding the quarter berths, the inside of the doghouse. We have done some priming last week. You can see these white areas that used to be like bare fiberglass basically. I took all the old paint off and put this Hull Guard Extra, which is the tie coat primer, so that we can lay fairing on top of this. I tried to be very selective about the places that I primed where we're going to be fairing. I'm just basically smoothing it out. I've been very selective in that I'm only doing places that will show when the boat is done. And so places like this, there might be like a picture frame or something on here, but it's not covered by anything. Around the windows, big walls there. So I tried to be very careful about those places that I'm going to see a lot. I don't want to do more fairing and sanding than I have to. So today what we're going to do is finally put the fairing on there. Cormac will be here a little bit later, but yeah, it's just going to be a big fairing, slapping purple stuff all over the boat kind of day. An example of a place that I'm not going to sand is like this area, which this is the bench. So there's going to be cushions on top of this. We are going to paint this, but it doesn't need to be faired. Like faired, again, I'm not fairing. I'm putting the fairing compound on, and I'm sanding it out with just an Orbital, basically smoothing it out so there's no pinholes. The surfaces are not going to be perfectly flat. So anyway, where the cushions are going to be on this bench, I don't need to sand out a whole bunch because you're not going to see them ever. Another example would be inside the cabinets. I'm not going to sand and fair inside those. Perfect timing. So we're gonna sweep this purple fairing on today. I'm gonna have you mixing for me, and I'll be sweeping it on the big walls and stuff, and then you could follow me around filling in all the small areas that I missed. So we got a lot to do. Okay, so it's just a 1-to-1 mix ratio. So keep one knife for the white, one knife for the red. So let's use this one for the white. And I'll need a lot at a time. Oh yeah, this stuff is quite cold. It's gonna be kind of tough to mix. But this can be eyeballed as far as how much you're mixing. It's pretty close to 1-to-1.
Yeah. So is this epoxy based?
Yeah, so yeah, this is an epoxy, and how they do it is we put that white Hull Guard Extra primer on the walls in there, and that is a tie coat. It's also an epoxy, and it bonds to this stuff, so there's a really good adhesion to the substrate for the fairing. Okay, that looks pretty good. It's very cold, so it took forever. What you can do is kind of move all this stuff down into the boat, like maybe just onto the counter in the galley. You could put a heater down next to these two things, or a heater up on the table so it heats up as you're mixing it. We don't want to get it super hot, just like warm. And then you could start mixing the next one, because I'll be going through this real fast. And don't forget your masks. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'm looking through hours of footage of you sanding, fairing, priming, and I'm a little lost. Can you remind us of the order of steps involved in painting the interior?
So first there's sand the old paint off. Make sure that the substrate is sanded. It's got a tooth. That means it's not smooth, so stuff can stick to it. And then we put down the tie coat primer, which is the white stuff, and then we put fairing on top of that, which is the purple stuff. We sand it out, and then we clean, and then put primer on top of that, and then paint on top of that.
This is definitely a naive question, but I've painted like a house wall before, and I just slapped on the primer and slapped on the paint over that. Maybe it didn't look great, but there were 2 steps. Can you explain why is painting a boat interior different? Why all this work?
Well, so I will say first that the way that I've constructed the boat, I've chosen the most difficult path for finishing the interior. If I had used like plywood bulkheads with nice veneers on them, all those bulkheads probably wouldn't have to be painted. Or if they did, I could have used like whatever. I could have used materials that were a lot easier to paint, but would have been heavier. Wouldn't have the same performance that my interior has. Or everything could have been built in molds, and so they would have come straight out of the mold and not needed to be painted. Therefore, my interior being fiberglass and taped together is a pretty raw, like substrate. And there's lots of lumps and bumps because of all the fiberglassing that I did. And if I just put paint straight on top of it, first of all, if the fiberglass isn't prepared in that I hadn't sanded it so that it didn't have a good what's called tooth, meaning it's rough enough to accept paint, for paint to stick to it, then the paint would fall off. Once it does have a good tooth, either from the peel ply or from sanding it, then the surface is very rough, lumpy, bumpy, and the paint job wouldn't be amazing. I'm not going to make it perfectly amazing, like super yacht interior amazing, but I'm going to make it, smooth enough that it looks good. And so the reason for all these steps is the substrate has to have a good tooth for paint to stick to. That's super important. I need to make the surface smooth enough, or like fair in quotations enough, so that it doesn't look terrible. And there is like a function here too, where if there's a bunch of porosity, I guess you could say, then dirt gets in there and it gets dirty easy. So I don't know. This is not a house. It's a fiberglass boat, I guess, is the short answer.
Yeah. How do you know all this?
I don't know.
No, seriously, where did you learn all this?
It's just from working in the yards and using the stuff. The last place to apply fairing was to the deck beams in the main salon area. I am planning on installing a liner on most of the overhead, but I'm going to leave the beams exposed, so they need to look nice.
This looks so miserable.
It is, but I can't complain because I'm getting to build my dream boat. And all I think about as I'm doing this is how great it's going to look when it's done. It's getting really close, and I really, really can't wait to see how good the interior is going to look when it's done. It's so close. Yesterday, we finished putting fairing on the rest of the inside of the boat, and then we sanded for the second half of the day. Cormac has the little sander, and he's getting in all the corners and everything, doing all the detail work. I'm doing the big areas with the big sanders, and as you can see, we've got both quarter berths pretty much done, and now we're heading into the main salon area. Yeah, getting a lot done. We're over a half day today, and then hopefully getting a lot done this week.
You look very strange.
Tools of the trade here.
So important to change the filters frequently when you're doing this work.
Yeah, you can see how much dust it collected.
Cormac, you're rocking the look too.
Yeah, it's pretty necessary.
Yeah, totally.
It keeps the dust out of the hair.
Yeah. So you're not doing that for fashion?
No.
All right, have so much fun, you two.
We will.
So much fun.
We're going to the big city, go to the big boat show. Morning.
Matt worked in the maritime industry in Seattle for several years, so he knows lots of boat folks. We ran into a few of them at the show.
Interior's all roughed out. We're getting ready to paint the interior. Right, the exterior's primed and fair. So 10 or 15 years ago when I started working on boats, Scott was the one that hired me initially to work at CSR Marine in Ballard. It was a great job. I learned a lot there. And yeah, Scott owns the place.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so great company, got a lot of good people. Matt was awesome. So really appreciated Matt working there.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Yeah, we wish you were back.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, no, hopefully you sail off in the sunset.
That's right.
Didn't you used to move the boats here when you worked at the shipyard in Seattle?
Yeah, it was one of the more fun jobs I ever got to do, was do like 3 or 4 18-hour days putting all these boats in, packing them in this building. It was really, really fun. And then moving them out again after the show was over.
What'd you use to move them?
Forklifts and big trucks and travel lifts, and it was super fun. We're here at the All Grip tent, and look at all these paint color options for doing the outside of the boat color with.
Should we give it away what color we're thinking about?
No?
Oh, come on.
Surprise.
Oh, come on.
This is the best we're gonna do. Like, this is a hint.
It's a hint. There are far too many options here. We're gonna get analysis paralysis. maybe more towards this end of the spectrum.
No, don't give it away. Okay. Okay. So this is just a sneak peek into the future of Duracell. This is Jack with PowerFlow Marine. What do you guys build here?
So we have fully electric propulsion with the capability to do series hybrid as well.
I'm very excited about this. We want to help Jack spread the word about PowerFlow Marine because we think he's made something valuable to boaters who want to go electric at a very reasonable price. Check out powerflowmarine.com.
After lunch, we took the ferry home. It was a fun day in the city and a very needed respite for Matt from the endless sanding and ferrying.
If you're interested in joining our Patreon community, you can find it at the Duracell Project on patreon.com. So first, thank you to Trey. He is a submariner in the United States Navy and has been sailing his whole life, having a bunch of small dinghies and stuff. In the future, him and his wife hope to buy their own cruising sailboat. He's been looking at a Neil 43, which I'd never heard of before. A very fast-looking trimaran, very cool-looking boat. And he's also planning on building a Scout this year. Also, thank you to Kit. He started sailing in the Midwest. He's done a few Chicago Mac races. He owns a Merit 22. He's owned a couple of them, actually. And now he works for a nautical supply company out of Italy. So thank you very much to Kit. And lastly, thank you to Jim. Jim has built a few boats in his life, including a Snipe and a gaff-rigged wooden sailboat that he sailed on San Francisco Bay. And currently he owns a Woody Grand Banks boat, which I told him that if I have a boat when I'm older, that'd be a sweet boat to have. It's an old Woody Grand Banks. So thank you again very, very much to everybody that's been supporting the channel. Again, we couldn't do this project without you.